Part 4 of our month-long book report. Oh, part 3. Sorry, y'all. We're going to get it. Planet Chicago. Let's go. Yeah.
You know what? It is a beautiful day today.
Yeah, buddy.
It's finally warm.
Man, finally. Finally warm.
I'm not pulling out my summer clothes just yet because I don't want to jinx it.
But we did put away the winter jackets.
Coats.
Yeah, the winter jackets. Yeah. So a little bit different.
Manifesting that piece. Welcome back to 77 Flavors of Chicago. If you're new here, every week we dive into a piece of Chicago history that is changing the country and the world.
You know what I'm saying?
Argue.
Yeah.
We are here to prove to you that Chicago is the best city.
Yep.
And
this, take away that damn stereotype of Chicago so dangerous, this, that, and the other.
We love it here.
Boy, y'all stop it.
If this is not your first time here, thank you so much for coming back. We love to have you. We see you coming back every week, and we're so excited. This is part 3 of the Plan of Chicago. But before we dive in, if you've been enjoying this new format of our episodes, we've changed them up a little bit. They're a little more professional.
Yeah,
a little more curated,
no more coins,
a little more,
less
a little
coins.
a little more structured, if you may. If you like this new format, please let us know. Give us a little rating, a little comment. You can, if you're listening on Spotify, I believe you can leave us a comment live.
Yeah,
like we can see. You can send us virtual mail through our website.
Yeah.
There's a plenty of ways for you to reach out. Some people have reached out and said that they like this new format.
Yeah.
So we're really excited to hear that because, sometimes you put things out there and you're like, I hope people resonate with this. So anytime we get positive feedback, even negative, we'll take it.
We take it.
We're here to receive feedback. We want this to be a place where you're enjoying your time. So thank you so much for that. If you have not yet, please follow us on Instagram every week along with these episodes. We do release a bunch of content around it. Dario's out in the neighborhoods. We're doing itineraries, all different kinds of stuff that kind of just elevate this experience more.
Yeah.
If you're, it's a Tuesday and you're like, or Wednesday or Thursday and you're like, man, I need a little more Chicago history. We got you there.
Yeah.
And if you have not yet, if you don't want to click the little button that says show notes here, you can get those in your inbox every Monday morning at 6:30 a.m. For free. And through our Substack, all you have to do is just sign up for the Substack, 100% free. It has all this information. It has really cool pictures, links for more stuff if you want to learn more, all of the recommendations that we make through the episode. And soon there will be like a Chicago events section where we will talk about some upcoming things that are happening. So you don't want to miss that, any tours, anything like that. So we'd love to have you there. It takes no time. You can do it while you're listening to this next 10 minutes of shenanigans.
Yeah, the Substack is going to evolve too. So you're going to see
some other contributors. So it won't just be me. Right now it's just me as we're, kind of getting our footing in, but we'll have other contributors.
Video too.
Yeah.
We talked about going live
on there. If we have guests, we're going to have guests write their own pieces for the Substack. So it'll be a fun time there. We're just getting started. So having you there helps us build up the platform. So excited.
One thing I will add about the new format of the podcast. I do want, if you're new here, I know this may be a history page to you, history podcast, and it is a history podcast and culture podcast. However, we do tell it differently. So we do have our fun on here. You know what I mean? I just want to preface that by saying, not preface, I guess, after the fact, just say, hey, look, we do have our fun on here now, y'all. This ain't the typical WBEZ.
You said this. Don't call that WBEZ.
No. I mean, but you know what I mean? Like suit and tie, monotone, professional. And it is not that. You know what I'm saying? Ain't nothing wrong with that. They know who they are. NPR and shit like that. There's not that. What I'm saying is, we are a couple who are, residents of Chicago, and I'm a Southsider. You're a Jordanian. You know what I'm saying? It is what it is. I'm just saying, keep that in mind when we doing this stuff. All right. Mm-hmm. So we professional, but also, I ain't go to Yale. I ain't go to Harvard. You know what I'm saying? Like, not saying I'm not educated, nothing like that. I'm just saying, just keep that in mind when you're listening to this. Also, go back to the beginning. We changed a lot. We changed a whole bunch.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We've grown.
Yeah, we have grown.
But this week was a packed week for us. We had a lot of fun. We did some really cool Chicago things. Now as spring and summer come into effect, there's so many cool, a lot of free events that are happening around the city. And one that I would put on your radar that is 100% free, it's at the auditorium of the Driehaus Museum. They're having an artist, a choreographer that came in there and commissioned a piece along with a composer. So it's a soundtrack kind of thing for or a score for the Murphy Auditorium. His name is Brendan Fernandez, and it's called In the Round. And it's a group of dancers that are going to be dancing in the round in a circle, basically. And it's 100% free. You can go in there and you watch them. It's on select days between April and November, I believe. It was really interesting. It was an interesting way to experience that space because it was closed for renovations for a few months.
Yeah.
And now it opened back up.
Yeah.
And
yeah, it's nice. It's a dope art experience too. I would say it's an art experience. It's not like your typical don't touch the art piece. You can't touch the art piece. But,
yeah, no.
But I mean, like
you can walk up to them as they're dancing.
They're dancing. You can walk around, and I think when we were there, a lot of people were sitting down, and then I was like, wait a minute. The art is in the round. You know what I mean? Like you have to get up and move. They said it too. They said you can move around the space, but I think, it's so different to people. We were like, we don't want to get in their way.
Right.
For the most part, they stay within that circle.
They do.
They stay with,
and they dance in a loop. So you're not like going to there and you're sitting and you're watching a show and then you're leaving. No, it's like just come in whenever you come in, watch them for a little bit, and then you can walk away and do whatever you were doing.
Hell too, boy.
And the endurance to dance for 3 hours is wild to me.
Ain't no way.
But it was really a cool way. First of all, the kind of the not structure, but the thing they're dancing around is like a circle made of mirrors. So it's reflecting the space in such a cool way. Like you see the ceiling, and if you look at the mirrors where they're stepping on it and they're dancing on it, it's like you see them in the ceiling. Like it's just a really cool little experience. And if you're planning to go to the Driehaus, stop in there before you make it inside.
Yeah.
Just a reminder, the Driehaus is free on Wednesdays after 4 p.m. So if you have plans to go,
do that.
Go
ahead, do that.
We love the Driehaus.
Absolutely.
So it's a great place to. I love those smaller museums.
Yeah, and the Gilded. What's crazy is it's a museum kind of off the beaten path. I would say, it's not one that is like, when you say Museum of Chicago, you think of Art Institute, you think of the Shed Aquarium, you think of the Field Museum, those things. Yeah. You're not thinking of, there's a ton of other.
So many.
Mexican History Museum, the Puerto Rican Museum, the Polish Museum, all the different museums.
So many. Every neighborhood has like a few.
Yeah. Like a bunch of, Dusabo, you know what I mean? Like there's so many different museums. And this is, kind of like, not an often talked about one. Yeah. But now I feel like the last few years.
Yeah, they've really kind of like.
But I will say the Richard Driehaus, his foundation does a lot around the city.
So much.
A lot around the city. Yeah. So like I'm saying that, like the Driehaus Museum is, not often talked about, but like that's a slight kind of. I'm not saying that to be that way, but because he do so much, his foundation does so much.
Yeah,
man, it's out here.
Beautiful. It's one of my favorites, and it's perfect if you don't have like a whole day to spend at a museum. You know what I mean? Like sometimes you don't want to go and spend 4 hours. Like you just want to go for an hour and come back. Yeah. So it's the perfect place for that. We're stopped by Kendall College. We're doing a live podcast taping as part of their fundraiser next week. And so we stopped in to kind of tour the place and see what where we're going to be sitting, what everything's going to look like. So we're really excited. It's only our second live podcast. The first one was for the 77th birthday. Yeah. And if you buy a ticket and you come to the live podcast, it is to support they're sending their students to Italy for 2 weeks, I believe.
A lot of times they're their first time too.
Yeah. And so they're raising money to help supplement the cost for the students. So it's a really important experience for them. It's for some of the students, it's their first time traveling out of the country.
The teachers.
So so it's really exciting and we're happy to be there, and we hope to bring a little bit of entertainment. So.
I just thought about right now, next week's episode is talking about something that directly relates to where we will be.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. So, perfect. I just thought about it right now.
Yeah.
That's going to be a perfect tie-in so that we can do this live podcast.
Yeah.
Be like a part 4B. You know, like,
that we're interviewing some people for that podcast. So if you aren't able to make it in person, you can listen to it. It'll be like a bonus episode that releases during the week. So if you're interested in that, you can catch it there. You also don't have to come to the dinner. If you'd like to donate, you could just donate money to them, I believe. Yeah. So we're excited for that. We also had a panel with Mayor Lightfoot and the, Madam Clerk, the city clerk. And it was, again, really cool thing because the city council records from the 1970s to 2012 have become available to the public. And so for the first time, we were kind of discussing, it was, immediately after Women's History Month. And so they planned it to kind of go hand in hand with that of like what was the experience of women on city council versus, how is it now? And how is it just in general being in the public eye? And so we had 3 different perspectives from 3 different generations, 2 politicians, me just being a person that constantly puts myself on the internet. So it was, and Dario moderated the panel. So it was a really fun conversation. I could have talked for like 4 more hours. Yeah, we definitely went over time. But because we had such a great conversation, it was really cool to be sitting there with Mayor Lightfoot and Madam Clerk. It was dope. Yeah. That's gonna be one of those moments. It's a core memory, like where because you like, man, I did this in the city of Chicago. Yeah. But the conversation, after we were done, I was like, regardless of whatever you think about Mayor Lightfoot's time, hearing her speak. She's smart as hell, for one. And she is very dedicated to the people of Chicago. I'll say that. Yeah. And, again, regardless of whatever you think, man, look, she shared some stories that were kind of like hard to listen to, if I'm being honest. I got respect for her. Yeah. Lots. For sure. Lots of respect for her. For sure. I mean, whether you like what she did or not, that's irrelevant. Like at this point, she's, she's a civilian. So like you're listening... it removes that like barrier of like, oh, this is a politician. Like she's just a human, and like the things she went through were different. Some stuff that an average person should not deal with. Yeah, no. Yeah, you can't deal with. Yeah, it was very special. But after that, we saw some shows. We went to a Shakespeare Theater twice back to back this week. Mrs. Krishnan's Party, which was. Dario and I ended up on stage. Yeah. Man, look, we are part of the show. This was not pre-planned. We did not know we were going to be on stage. We truly ended up being like stirring the doll on stage. It's a really cool premise. Food, y'all, for those hood people. It's lentil. And so it was a really interesting experience because it was like we were invited to the party. Yeah. And so it was happening around us. It was very, very cool. The moment we sat down in the seats that we sat, because we sat right, the whole place is like a stage for one, just to set that tone. Yeah, you're sitting on stage. You're on stage with them. And the moment we sat where we sat, I was like, we about to be in a show. I know it. And that's the only thing I prepare for is like, I'm always ready, y'all. I'm always ready. If it's I'm always ready at all times. Yeah. Everyone came up to him afterwards like, are you an actor? Are you an actor? And he's like no, man. Look, but what's crazy is, as I'm getting on the elevator, because I always take my camera with me. This time I couldn't bring my camera. She stopped me at the door. And so I took it back to the car. And as I'm getting off the elevator, coming back into the theater, one of the directors there and the management was like, hey, where do I know you from? I'm like, I'm always, maybe 77. She's like, I don't know. And I was like, okay. No, but just like, never heard of it. Yeah, never heard of that. But then she goes, it seemed like I seen you around here. I'm like, I'm always at these shows. I'm always here. She's like, are you an actor? And I said, no, I'm not an actor at all. I act up. We laugh and joke. And that was it. You went inside the theater and acted up. I know for a fact she's probably like, this dude was an actor. And I'm like, no, I wasn't, I swear. But it was fun. It was a lot of fun. I got us in some shenanigans. That's what caused it. Yeah. For sure. Lying about a marriage. It was so funny. Then the next day we went back for Merry Wives of Windsor, which was also a really cool show. Yeah. So, a fun packed week. They're gonna continue to be packed.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Y'all go see both of them shows.
Yeah.
Dying laughing.
Highly recommend.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah, they was lit. But you ready to talk about today's stuff?
Ready.
Oh man, let's get it. All right, y'all. So we talked about everything. We infrastructure is what we still kind of on that theme. Gardens, transportation, now the actual streets. And you might think that we're talking about like the street numbers and names. That did happen this year. The 1909 is where we are. That did happen this year. Lasted to 1911-ish. And that's not what we're talking about. The actual planning of the streets and how we came to be where we are. So I do want to say Chicago, and I didn't say this phrase, but I said it was centered around the circular and radial type situation, right? Well, here's something that's really cool that you should know. Chicago's reason why it was in a circle is they wanted it like that, but the circle started at kind of like where the water is. If you were standing at the Buckingham Fountain, right now, and you walk directly east from the Buckingham Fountain into the water, a little bit into that water is where what's called the Grand Axis.
Oh.
So that is the center of the proverbial circle that Chicago worked with. Okay, so keep that in mind, y'all. So we're basing all of our streets. The reason why I say that is because the streets and everything that we talked about has been planned around this grand axis.
Gotcha.
A circular axis. Okay, so keep that in mind. Now, the city planned the mix of radial streets and grid streets at the same time. This is where the plan of that really happened. Okay, and it was divided into 3 different parts. Streets, parks, pedestrian parkways, right? That kind of situation, right? It was divided into 3 things. The streets, avenue, and boulevards is what I meant to say. I wrote something else down here. Now, the street was the general type of artery, so they say. It was a street. That is what it was. The avenue was where the travel and the traffic was going to be the heavy part, the heavy lift into that. And the boulevard was the combination of parks and driveways. So that's kind of where I was going with the streets, parks, and pedestrian walkways, that kind of thing. Now, there's a huge map that I want to put up here that shows the black lines are where the streets that are already existing are. And then the orange, reddish looking lines here, probably what you see, are the new proposed streets.
So for anyone that's not watching, can you kind of describe what this map?
Yeah. So this map shows you the radial, the radial shape of Chicago with the grand axis. And you see a little bit of the circuits that we talked about in the previous episode. But this one is really cool. The reason why I wanted to highlight this one is that you see some notable streets here, and this will give you a frame of mind, so to say. You see Archer, Congress, Halsted. Lakeshore Drive is not where Lakeshore Drive is now, which is very interesting to me. And then South Park Avenue. And then you'll see all of the other streets. One example, one street proposed at the very bottom of the map there. That's where Lakeshore Drive is now. But where you see Lakeshore Drive, and it's cool because we're showing you what's in the book that they have written. That's already there. Yeah. So it ain't us making nothing up. This is what it was.
To be clear, we never make anything up.
No, right. We never make anything up.
We're not
there'd be people on the internet be like, they don't know that Lakeshore wasn't right. It's right there. I'm showing you the picture. Okay. Now the reason why I want to show you that again is because keep those angled streets in mind. Arch Avenue, we talked about that during street names, and that's got a very interesting situation going on there. That was literally almost 2 decades prior to the Route 66 being happening. But it had everything to do with the I&M Canal in Chicago, that being a major waterway. But it's kind of cool to see that map, and it'll play a part. Now, I wrote down some things, how they planned out these streets. And this is really cool because they planned the streets out to a T and how they wanted it to work. And with these things,
this was a mess up until this point.
I mean,
I'm gonna dive into like our next section. I'll dive into a little bit of the before this plan.
Yeah,
but it was a mess.
I mean, and in the book, Daniel Burnham is not afraid to let you know this is some trash. This is trash.
Yeah,
like y'all, this is trash. So the street conditions for a retail district they were supposed to be 80 to 100 feet wide, divided equally between sidewalk and roadway, pavement smooth and noiseless. Frequent islands of safety for pedestrian crossing and occasional subway crossings and other things that they talked about. They talked about lighting and how the lighting will work. Yeah. So, and
we kind of talked a little bit last time about like the widening of the streets and how expensive that was and probably why it was really hard to do outside of Roosevelt and Michigan. Those were the main two streets that they kind of widened. But other than that, there was a lot of pushback.
Yeah. Ridiculous pushback, which is...
it's expensive.
It was expensive, but the people that were on the board... you know what I mean? But the people that were on the board, and I'm going to get to it because I went back and looked at it after all this, because I know you saw it too, but like they talk about like the expense, he kept on saying, ain't no expense too big. You know what I mean?
Like, he said, we have Palmer.
Right.
We have Marshall Fields.
We got
this.
this.
Have Pullman. Like all of them wanted to do this.
Yeah, man, we got the money. So like this is what we're going to do.
I'm curious when we get to the episode about the legality of it, because like, is it okay for them to fund it? Or does this have to be like at the time, did this have to be funded from tax money? Or could it have been funded by private people? Because then like, what is the owner? You know what I mean? Like, I'm sure there's a bit of like, pushback because of that, because the city's like, we are not spending money widening streets. Why would we do like, you know what I mean? So I'm interested about, that'll be hopefully next episode. I think. In
this section, I didn't write it down, but I saw that he said when it came to lighting, how the streets will be lit.
Yeah.
That he was saying that tax should be on the building. He said that Daniel Burnham. The more and more I read this, the more I'm like, Daniel Burnham was a real dude. He would have been a billionaire that was actually for the people. Like he would have been a multimillionaire. I don't know if he was quite a billionaire, but I feel like he was for the people. Which is, I don't know. I got growing suspicion. With the streets condition with the retail district, I did put a note here that when we went to Barcelona, this description is really, really reminiscent of
like the boulevards that they have in there.
Because remember, we went and we were like, bro, this is a whole park in the middle of a street.
And it's like their center median is larger than the street. Like the street is split up into two lanes, but each lane is on each side of the median. So you didn't have two-way streets in those pedestrian areas.
Yep.
You know what I mean? Like they were kind of flanked by this park.
And those are bigger than what he said. Like think about this.
Way bigger.
80 to 100 feet is what he was proposing.
Right.
Those are like 200 feet.
Yeah, probably.
And they weren't, he said here divided equally. So like if you had 40 foot of street, you had 40 foot of parkway. So it's not like that over there. But like the concept it just blew our mind when we went for the first time. We were like, oh my God, this looks nice.
But again, it's like not the entirety of the city, but it's a nice chunk. Yeah.
Nice chunk. Now the streets carrying heavy tonnage, their width was going to be 70 to 90 feet with a roadway of a little more than 1/2 of the entire space. And here the pavements should be most enduring of character, regardless of noise.
Yeah.
So basically he said, we want more street than half, right? More than half of that is street with little parkway for pedestrian, but also we gonna make it with the best quality that we can. Who care about the noise? This is for traffic, right? This is for big trucks and things like that to go down. Now, the residence streets, the area devoted to pavement may well be lessened to from 20 to 36 feet, according to the amount of traffic. That's crazy. So like when it residential, big trucks and stuff ain't going down there. Like, you know what I mean? Like this is not for that.
Streets.
Yeah, this ain't for that. And you can see that South Side is big on that. You know, South Side, North Side, parts of the North Side. Actually, most parts of the city, neighborhood wise, streets are small.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, so this is that's kind of his plan. But here's the part where I was kind of like, it didn't work out really. Cool shade parks for small children to play. All of this was supposed to be catered to kids. I didn't write it down, but it was also light and everything. Lighting, this is where I saw the tax part. You know, we're going to get into how this plan fell apart because disinvestment and corruption and all that kind of stuff happened and redlining and, you know, Chicago just got too crazy because this thing came out in 1909. This is just a few years from the Great Northern Migration. Wait, I'm sure that put a damper on shit. Like, I
mean, people have started kind of probably kind of moving. Yeah.
I mean, a little bit, but not really. You know what I mean? Like, it ain't really kick off. Right. You know, now they designed the traffic to flow on a grid pattern with the diagonal streets to alleviate the stress of the traffic that's moving southwest to northeast and southeast to northwest. So diagonal, right? In all directions. They said the diagonal streets that were already there, the Archers of the world, the this, that, and the other, those were supposed to be used. We're going to use those to our advantage to help with the radial type idea that we're talking about to alleviate the grid pattern that we have.
Yeah.
You can get in and out that way. If that part is it's like little pockets of detail that you got to read in this and be like, oh, I get it. Like they were granular about why they did it. And like, it's when you think about it, you're like, oh, they just made it. No, they were detailed, calculated with this. And a lot of stuff I'm not saying. It's crazy. Now, Chicago already had these diagonal streets. Like they highlighted Blue Island and Milwaukee were already a big deal and big use. But what they were going to do is widen and elongate like Ogden, Archer, and others, things like that. They wanted, I think it was either Archer or Ogden. One of them, I should have wrote that one down.
Yeah, didn't write a lot of things down this episode.
Well, a lot of it is like, you know, little monotonous, like little details.
It's like 30 pages.
Yeah, right. Yeah, 4-hour podcast. But the key to one of them, they wanted it to go 30 miles. Like, think about it.
Well, there was the streets that they wanted to reach all the way to Milwaukee. Also, right. That was wild. That's where we got the No Little Plans speech that he gave. Now, a lot of this influence. And there's maps here that I put on screen again. A lot of the maps. Sheridan that wanted to go to Milwaukee.
Yeah. A lot of the maps here are of Paris, and they used a lot of inspiration from Paris. And I look at this. Maybe this is why people are like, "Oh, Paris,
Chicago should have looked like
Paris." Yeah. Because in this particular chapter, that's all they really use. They used a lot of Paris examples. And when you look at Paris, damn, like. It really is like that. It was nice. And like Chicago, you could see some of the ideas of what Chicago wanted to have. And so I don't know. It's very wild how serious we were about like, no, they're doing it like this. We should do it like this. Yeah. But Chicago was such a better situated place. And I got the quote I was telling you about. I got a dope quote. Now this mentions that Chicago didn't have any, and this is a quote, buildings possessing either historical or picturesque value, which must be sacrifices in order to carry out the plans. So basically, they were like, Chicago ain't have shit. So reason why we need to do this, we ain't got nothing to lose.
Yeah, everything was new.
Everything new. Y'all burned down.
So we can get rid of it and make it better. So like, there's no fear of like tearing down historical buildings, which is crazy because like at this point, some buildings could have been 40 years old. Yeah, right. You know what I mean? At this point, but at the same time, he's looking at like, we ain't got no Arc de Triomphe. We ain't got no Champs-Élysées. Champs-Élysées. We don't have, that's a throwback, y'all. That was an inside joke. Sorry. We don't have none of that old castles and stuff like that we had to preserve. Yeah. So to his point was like, it's okay to tear things down and start over.
Just go ahead and do it.
I don't know if I agree with that piece, but okay.
I don't think it was necessarily tear. I mean,
I mean, that's
Yeah,
kind of what he's
yeah,
saying.
yeah.
Yeah, that's kind of what he's saying.
You know.
Because he's like, none of it is historic. So that shouldn't be an argument.
Yeah,
Next question.
Yeah,
Like,
that's not a good look. And the reason why I stopped myself because I did skip ahead and I looked at the legalities part, and they use eminent domain in there.
Yeah.
Remember we were doing the streets and we were talking about like there's only a few instances in history where eminent domain was used.
because it's horrifying.
I think we're about to get to one of those moments.
Yeah.
The first moment.
I know we will.
Yeah, I think we're about to get to that. Now, here was an interesting part about how they talked about trains coming through a neighborhood, how they looked at this. And man, didn't end up like this, but trains in a neighborhood, if they were to come to a neighborhood, they wanted to know, they were like, that's bad planning. Daniel Burnham was like, that's bad planning. Because house property would go down, property value would go down if somebody bought a house and then all of a sudden we built a train.
Right.
He was like, this plan is going to be where we have it already figured out. This is where the houses are going to go. And this is how the trains are going to go around them.
Yeah.
And this is a foolproof plan.
That's so funny because I don't know if you remember, but I think we just did an episode on it a couple of years ago, maybe. It was that candy company that's in Lincoln Park that is no longer in Lincoln Park. But if you live in Lincoln Park and you walk down the Wrightwood neighborhood, there are tracks that go nowhere, right?
Yeah.
And there's a ton of them in that area. And when we did that episode, the reason we did that episode is because I was like, what are these tracks? So I started digging, and it was this candy company that used these tracks to deliver product into and out of their factory. So the factory was in the neighborhood, and there was a dedicated train that just moved their stuff. It wasn't like a streetcar. It was actual train tracks.
Yeah.
They're still there. You can walk, I think it's like Lincolnwood or something, like one of those side streets. Like literally we used to live in that neighborhood, and I would walk Campbell, our dog, and I would be like, what are these? Like they go into a gated community.
Yeah.
Like they go nowhere. And it was just so fascinating. And there's actually a little garden that is dedicated to the candy company in that neighborhood.
Really?
Yeah, because it stands on the site of where the building used to be that they tore down.
That's amazing.
And it was a white building, and they tore down the white building. I'll link the episode if you're interested in that, if you want to learn more about it.
How did I miss that?
We did it a couple of years ago, probably.
Yeah,
so
at the time I sure know.
Yeah.
That's even hearing it again sounds good to me. You know, that's dope.
It's just fascinating that he thought that was bad planning, but that happened a lot, especially like on the south side and the southwest side. A lot of like heavy manufacturing happened in the neighborhood. People lived in back of the yards because it was close to where they worked, and so there was always train tracks.
He literally was like, "This is how it should be."
Poor people behavior.
Yeah, well, right. Basically, he was calling the rich people poor because he was like, "If y'all don't plan,
it's gonna look like ruckus.
Yeah, it's gonna be stupid."
Yeah.
Now,
it's gonna be stupid.
Read the book. Like y'all read the book.
He wanted everyone in this. He wanted the city to be like made for the wealthy. He wanted everything to exude that like very wealthy luxury experience. And so he was like, we have to plan in a way where all of this like extra, like the shipping and we talked about it last time when we talked about transportation, is that he was really particular about where he wanted things placed because it needed to happen around the city from the outside so that the inside was kind of like this where it was like parks and lakes and like ponds and you didn't see any of the like grimy industrial parts inside the city. But also there's probably little foresight here because the city grew. It annexed a bunch more and like how what were you gonna do? Move the tracks further out? Like what? So it's an interesting thought at the time, but I feel like there could have been more foresight. And also, where do the people go that like work on these train tracks? Where do you know what I mean? Like is the solution then like a town like Pullman where it was like you're indebted indefinitely to the company you're just like living basically like
maybe.
So like again, it's we say like You know, he wanted what's best for the people, but it was like a very select group of people that he cared about.
And you gotta,
because this plan would have pushed out a lot of people.
True, but in the book he does say, whether we know it or not, it says verbatim though that this is for the people of Chicago and for people to come back to want to be here. So but also you got to think about this. 1909, the plan fell apart quick. You know what I mean? Like it fell apart extremely fast.
Yeah,
like
because it was expensive and
timely
and time consuming.
Yeah, that's the problem. Yeah. Now he did bring up the notion of gathering spaces, and the reason why I wrote this down is because we got a couple spaces here in Chicago that are exactly like this. And he noted other places like Boston, Massachusetts, with the 4th of July, and other spaces around the world. They had gathering spaces. So what happens when people come out to the streets to celebrate?
Yeah,
like a big celebration. Right. You can't stop that. And what happens with the traffic? He said, well, they thought of creating open spaces for people, which appropriately may be adorned by the statue of men of achievement, or may be ornamented with fountains and memorials of various kinds.
Gotcha.
Now, so he was like, so in case of that around these areas, what we'll do is we'll make open spaces where people can just come out of their homes and play. And this is where the parks come in. A couple places that I wrote down was obviously Grant Park.
Yep.
And then Logan Square.
Yeah.
So Logan Square, obviously they're remodeling. And the reason why I wrote down Logan Square is because the picture that is in the book that I have on the screen is directly like how it looks in Logan Square.
What is it the roundabout area?
With the Centennial.
With the Centennial.
Yeah. And I was like, I wonder how much thought goes into these plans.
I think of like where they have like your farmers markets and stuff like that. I think of, for example, in Austin, the Austin Farmers Market that actually starts next month in May. They hold it in front of the town hall, which isn't it like the building meant to mimic like the Philadelphia town hall? Again, this is like an intentional space for people to come and gather. And I think of like the Lincoln Park Farmers Market in the huge park in Lincoln Park. There's a farmers market that is in on Southport that is under the train tracks. That area could have been nothing, but they put up art, they put up benches, they paved it. It's now a gathering space. I feel like Chicago's big on these like gathering spaces, and I feel like sometimes even if the city isn't making them, the communities are putting them up. Yeah, and I mean,
we'll get into this plan, not working on it, but I absolutely like the way the vision was. Yeah. I mean, the vision was again, Chicago would have been.
It would have looked really cool.
Chicago would have been by far, hand over fist, by far the best planned city. I think it's still up there in the ranks too.
I agree.
By a lot of people are saying that it's one of the most planned city, best planned city.
Pretty intentional.
I mean, it was very, very well done for what we have too. Granted, this one a little bit better. but what we got is, definitely not bad. I do want to know one more very interesting piece to the streets and how they work around, so to say. So y'all know the Chicago Y, where the 3 branches of the river meet up, north, south, and central, main branch. Well, right there, they were thinking about having bridges and stuff that connect and around. So that was a circular section. So you would go over the water, the river in 3 different parts in circle, and the traffic went around that. Now, here's the crazy part about that. In that same section,
we kind of have that.
We kind of do.
Not between the north and
right. But that's what I'm about to get. Let me get at it because he said exactly the way Chicago is right now. He absolutely lit that shit up in the book. He was like, we got bridges of all sorts all over the place, and it don't make no sense. He says that in the book,
just
y'all.
Like arbitrary. Like someone was like, I need to cross at this point and put up a bridge.
And he was like, they keep falling down.
Yeah.
And basically, he was like, this is not, it don't make sense. So this section, this is how we're going to do this section. I was like, well, Mr. Burnham, if you were alive now, sir, I'm sorry, we failed you on that part.
I like the bridges that go over the rivers.
Too.
Yeah.
Me too. Now, but like seeing with when you look at the picture.
Are they kind of in a circle? I'm trying to think.
No, there ain't no circle.
There's no circle.
Hell no. Look, the circle he talking about is an actual, like circle. I put it on. It's on page
It's
95.
the
here.
north and the main branch and the south branch. The
Yes.
circle.
He
Why
was
would
going
you
to.
need that?
He was going to put a circle there, like make that a circle. So look right here.
I see.
You see?
I mean, you kind of have that.
You kind of don't. Not that close.
Those two, yeah.
Yeah, we ain't got that. That would have been cool. And here's the crazy part: even if we wanted to go back to that, we couldn't do it.
Yeah, no.
It's too late. It's buildings there.
Buildings and stuff.
It's buildings there. Yeah, it's no way to go there. But that part is crazy because he literally was like. And
I think we got enough bridges.
Yeah.
We have enough bridges. I don't think we need any more bridges.
To conclude my little speech right here, I want to hit you with this quote. Because this to me, I think is an all timer. I don't know why. I love this one.
Tell us.
To me, it's up there with make no little plans. Yeah, I mean, and the rest of that speech is dope too. We never finished on for him. He said make big plans. If Chicago were to be relocated today, it would still be placed at the same spot where it is now. And if the streets were again mapped, the same general system would be adopted. He said, look, if we did this over again in another universe, in another lifetime, we doing the same thing we doing right now. He was confident in this plan. He was like, this is fail-proof. It was fail-proof.
Except it failed.
It wasn't his fault. I mean,
we'll get into it.
Might have been his fault when he died.
Yeah.
So.
So I kind of wanted to, I don't want to spend too much time talking about the streets per se, but I did want to give an idea of what the 10 years, couple decades before actually looked like.
Okay.
Because like we established, it was chaos.
Yeah.
It was absolutely chaotic. And it was just really interesting because up until 1876 is when like people were like, okay, we made a mess. It's a little messy.
He's still cleaning up rubble.
Let's lock in. And I wrote some things down. I wrote a lot because I was really interested in it, and maybe I'll dive deeper into it in the show notes. But just to kind of give you an idea, so the actual street ordinance passed what went into effect in 1909, but it was passed on by City Council in 1908, and this was the first time that it was into effect that the street grid is now state in Madison. We know it right now. Mm-hmm. But there was a lot that happened leading up to it. And it started in I'm going to go back to 1879. Mm-hmm. So December 1st, 1879 was when City Council had decided to they needed to renumber the streets. Mm-hmm. It was
the first time.
Yes, because here's the thing. We had a huge annexation that happened, mm-hmm. right? And so each township that you annexed, you know what I mean, had their own system.
That's a good ass point.
And so nothing was cohesive. Everything was its own little thing. And so they decided, all right, let's renumber the streets north-south, the streets between north-south Roosevelt Road and east of the river. That's the section that they decided to renumber. This was to kind of like...
So Hyde Park.
Yes, because they had just taken over Lake Township. And so they were like, let's match the rest of Hyde Park, basically. So that section, 12th Street or today's Roosevelt Road, is very like huge in the history of the street.
Yeah, massive actually.
Yeah, because it was like the main split that they were like, okay, north-south. Mm-hmm. And so the north-south from Roosevelt street numbers started at 1200. North-south west of the river, but crossed to the east, used the new numbers, but only after they crossed the river. So if you were living on the other side of the river,
mm-hmm. the west side,
you had the old numbers, but if you were across the river, you had the new numbers.
So they just that corner, literally the Hyde Park area, like that. Just
yeah. So they were using the lake and the river. The lake and the river and 12th Street as the main boundary, as the main numbering kind of like baseline.
That's interesting as hell.
Right? And so the Chicago itself had three separate kind of systems. And it was the Chicago Directory Company that kind of in 1909 was like, all right, we're responsible for, here's your new house number, basically. But what's really interesting is that the three grand divisions, which were the North, which its main artery was North Clark, and the South, which was State, and the West division, which was Madison, Randolph, and Lake, right? And this is at this point where in 1891.
Man, so that we had several different numbers.
Oh my God, so many.
It's such
so
a
many.
small,
I couldn't even put them in a list because I would be sitting here for 20 minutes naming the different systems.
The Roosevelt to the Lake one makes
no sense to me.
That's such a small area.
Oh yeah, it had its own
because even then the river was much closer.
Yes.
So it was like a sliver.
Correct. And it was so bad that you had things like Lake Street, and also you had Lake Avenue. Okay. You had Park Avenue on the west side and South Park Avenue, which was miles away from Park Avenue. Okay. We're at 1891 now. All right. And so there was no distinction between streets or avenues or boulevards or roads. It was all just whatever you wanted to name it.
So that makes sense why he was like, let's break them down into three different things.
Let's be strict.
Gotcha.
In 1901, this is a Tribune article from June 16th, 1901. The city council was meeting to discuss the street numbers and, renaming the streets. And so the main issue is that they were still using the river and the lake as the baseline. And it is hard because as we logically know, the river isn't straight. So there's no like east, west, north, south. Like, you know what I mean? Like
it
goes diagonal. Yeah. Like it's just a weird kind of thing. And so by 1901, they had already been talking about it for like over 10 years. And so there was a little piece in the article that said renumbering the houses, which is at this point was tens of thousands of houses, which now is probably more, would have cost between $1 and $2 a house. So they were like, it's too expensive. We cannot do it. It was going to cost tens of thousands of dollars to renumber these houses. We cannot do it.
Palmer, you got it. George Pullman,
Isn't that so funny? But again, is that legal for them to do it?
Right. Well, that's what
I'm saying. Like, can they use their money as private people to pay for that? The city can't take donations.
Boy, I cannot wait till we get to this part.
I know.
Oh my God.
I know. The Chicago Record Herald in 1901, June 26, 1901, Edward P. Brennan suggested the arrangement of altering street names and numbers. Okay. And this was the first time that we hear of this 1901, the first time that we hear of the State and Madison cross section.
Oh.
Okay. So this is what he said. This is a direct quote from his press release. He says, the baselines are State Street, north and south, and Madison Street, east and west. Their function is the center from which all distances are measured. There's no use disturbing this central downtown district, as the commercial interests would be all up in arms against the change. So he said, we will use State and Madison, but we don't want to disturb the central business district, which was later the Loop.
Yeah.
So he's like, this will apply to anything outside of the Loop. Between 12th Street and beyond the river's arms, the reform would be easily put into practice. So outside of 12th Street and the river, again, 12th Street and the river, anything outside of that area, we will use State and Madison as the center. But anything inside, we're just not going to bother them because they're businesses. It's too much. They don't want to change. Okay. And he suggested that streets become anything that's running east-west, avenues run north-south, anything that's running diagonal cutting north is a road, like Milwaukee Avenue. Anything diagonal cutting south is called a way, like ways. Smaller streets east and west are court. Smaller street north-south is place.
Yeah, that wouldn't work, my boy.
Yeah. Numbers across.
We had to change that.
Numbers across the river and at 12th Street would start as 1000. That block would be block 1000. Okay, so we're at 12th Street, block 1000. On the south side, he said it would start as block 1000 because 12th Street from State and Madison is technically 10th Street. We're not going to rename it 10th Street, but we will start it as block 1000.
What street?
12th, Roosevelt. 10 blocks from Madison and State. So,
that's crazy.
So he's like, we'll start the block as if it's 10th Street. So we'll start number 1000. but we won't rename it 1000. We'll just keep it as 12th.
What's crazy is it's still like that. The number system is still
it's still 11th and then Roosevelt.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's still technically 12th, but it actually is 10th, is what
10th.
he's saying. I know.
And then there's 13, 14, 15, and then it continues.
Yeah. So city council meets, takes this advisement into kind of, consideration. By July of 1909, the Tribune puts out a really, really facetious article saying, this is the title of the article: "Schemes that are as plain as the Chinese language suggested to simplify Chicago's street numbers." They said, these aldermen at the time, obviously, are meeting, trying to give us ways to renumber the streets. None of it makes sense. And I read the suggestion by these aldermen. I don't want to bore you because it's long and it makes no sense. But it is actually probably, if it went into effect, it probably would have been one of the worst things I've ever read in my life. And it was the first section of it was pretty bad. It was, amended a bunch of times. Like I said, in 1908, it passed city council. In 1909, it was amended again. It went into effect September of 1909. It was amended again in 1910 to actually include the loop this time.
Yep.
And in 1911, they gave the loop these new addresses. And I have so many cool pictures that I'm going to put in the show notes about what it was like for people to because people were responsible for renumbering their own houses. And so some of these houses had their numbers in stone.
Yeah.
And you had to come up with new numbers for your houses. So now, what do you do?
Mm-hmm. So what I'm looking up while you were doing that, because here in the book here, which just ripped we now have a vintage book.
Oh, sure.
So they list out who was a part of the commercial club, and they break down the merchant club as it stood 1906 to 1907. It's listed here, and then from there, it changed to the commercial club. But the commercial club from 1908 to 1909, the general committee vice chairman was Charles H. Wacker.
Yeah.
Street name.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, so big guy, big name on streets. Of the railway terminals, guess who was the chairman? Joy Morton.
Oh, that makes sense.
Joy Morton was the chairman of the railway terminals, and on the streets and boulevards, the chairman there was Clyde M. Carr. So what we need to do is look up Clyde M. Carr and do some research on him, because he was head of the streets and boulevards, according to the newly formed committee right here.
With a last name like Carr, you have to be.
Yeah, they double R. Double R. Yeah, they were like, you're the guy.
That's the one.
That's the one. That's the one. There was one more name that I thought was really cool on here. I don't want to take up no time, but Edward B. Butler was on the Lake Parks chairman. I wonder if that's the same Butler that over by the Soldier Field, there's Butler Drive.
Right.
I wonder if that's named after him. If I'm logically thinking, that's got to be it, because that's a lake and a park.
Let us know next episode.
We will. I definitely will.
But yeah, it was fascinating seeing that, and then going into what?
No. I was gonna say Charles Dawes.
Oh yeah.
Charles Dawes was on the finance. Y'all, and if you don't know Charles Dawes lived in Everson with Burnham, Daniel Burnham.
It's so funny. There's a little caricature from I think it's from the Tribune, and it was like the first day Broadway became Broadway, and it used to be called Evanston Avenue, and it turned into Broadway. And it's this like cartoon of this woman asking the streetcar, "Do you go to Evanston Avenue?" And he goes, "No, I go to Broadway," or something like that. Like something funny of he knows the new name, she doesn't know the new name. Like they're confused. There's a ton of those. I'll make sure to include them in the show notes if you're interested. But it was really fun, like looking at that, and like, I mean, we could do an entire thing just on the streets.
Way more.
And because there's so much history there, and
I was gonna say there's so much history, but like what's really cool is how the South Side was really looked at. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And how we fell apart for this. And honestly, I just can't wait to get to the the aftermath, right? Like where we are right now, because we got another big plan that's about to happen, right? The 2045. And so, just seeing how the South Side was relied on heavily, and like they looked at going to the West Sides and North Side and equally, but here we are today, and it's such a segregated city.
Yeah. There is a interesting episode from our past, if you want to listen to it. It's actually a YouTube video. It's the Uptown Buena Park video, because we talked a lot about the streets, because that is a very unique neighborhood and how it was laid out. And so it kind of gives you an insight of like how big the city was at the time and how the streets were laid out and how it was hard to change these streets because things were already like built and in effect. And as things got annexed, it was like harder and harder to keep it uniform. But I thought of that one as kind of an interesting, we've never done like an episode on streets, but that one we kind of touched on a little bit. Yeah. Some books that I found while doing the research is Streetwise Chicago, a history of Chicago street names, if you're interested in that. We also did a 30 names in 30 days for streets. Maybe we did that twice or just once.
We just did that once.
One round.
We only doing that one once, boy.
If you Google 77 Flavors street names, you'll probably get a bunch of those videos, but we just did it last year, so it's not too far back of a scroll. I also found City of the Century, the Epic of Chicago and the Making of America, and it's a 1996 book by American historian Donald Miller. It chronicles Chicago's rise from a frontier settlement to a modern metropolis and a cultural powerhouse, portraying the city as a microcosm of industrial age America. And then for movies, kind of hard to think of like a movie that specifically is about streets. I feel like the Blues Brothers is a cool one because they're in the streets a lot.
It was everywhere.
Yeah. So
Joliet.
You get kind of like a look of what the street, I don't know, if you are unfamiliar with what Chicago looks like. Honestly, Ferris Bueller is a cool one because like they're driving down some Chicago streets. That's a cool one, but there isn't anything specifically. It's hard. It's like a smaller topic. So, it's hard to find anything like a movie, about that, but I hope those kind of like spark your interest. And if you're interested in learning about street naming and street numbers and that specifically and diving into that history, let us know. Maybe we'll do something later this year on that. I feel like it's
later this year might be locked up though. We got some fun. we might not get to it this year, but we'll figure it out.
Yeah, we'll see. But that's all I have for today. Thank you so much for listening. I hope you enjoyed it, and we're wrapping up Planet Chicago almost. Probably like one or two more episodes,
and 2 more. Yeah.
We'll jump into the next topic, which is World Columbian Exposition. We're already underway on the filming and the research, so make sure you come back for that. And we'll see you next time. Peace. Thank you so much for listening to today's episode, and we hope you loved it.
And if you could, please follow us on social media at 77 Flavors Shy on Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, and Twitter.
If you have any ideas or deep dives that you'd love us to do, please contact us at media@77flavorsshy. That's the number 77 flavors and shy for Chicago.com.
If you like visuals, please subscribe and follow and watch us on our YouTube channel at the same thing, 77 Flavors Shy, or search 77 Flavors of Chicago.
If you would like to support us monetarily, go ahead and click that Buzzsprout link in the description of this episode.
And as always, we gonna see you next week. Peace.